Okay, so this is going to be a part 2, and we're going to do some asymmetrical patterns. We're going to put background patterns onto woven patterns and of course cover the larger cubes, the V cube 6 and 7. So here's just a simple pattern that I'm going to use. I'm going to not really explain it, just going to make it. It's a vertical bar on the left, and then we're going to put a couple more dots next to it. So there's my pattern, and we're going to use that soon. So now I'm going to go to a V cube 6, and on here I'm going to make a simple circle or O type pattern. Just do that real quick. And go like this. It's just using the same technique that I described a couple times already. That's the pattern. Kind of nice. And now I'm going to use some of these and just demonstrate putting a background pattern on top of a woven pattern. I call this a woven pattern. It's a custom pattern. It's a special shape that you've invented. It doesn't necessarily have to be symmetrical. So on top of this pattern I'm going to put just the ordinary checkerboard pattern now on a 5x5. As I'm sure everyone who's ever been interested in cubing patterns knows, the checkerboard pattern is done that way, like I just did. And so you can kind of see that the pattern I had on there kind of combines with the checkerboard in a colorful way. Here's the H. Let's do the checkerboard on top of the H. Of course, on a even numbered cube, like the V cube 6, you can't get a checkerboard on all four sides. But I'll just do the best available approximation to that, which is getting a checkerboard on 4 sides, 4 out of 6. And then here's our circle type pattern with checkerboards overlapping it. So that's kind of a fun thing to do. And there are lots of patterns that you can do this with. The ones where it's most likely to produce a good looking result are the type of patterns where the opposite colors are combined, like on the checkerboard where you've got the orange and red combined. Another type of pattern you can do, like an overlap, is this, where you go take your ordinary Rubik's Cube and you go around like this 6 times, and you end up with this type of pattern. Doing this zigzag on a V cube 6 is rather elaborate process, because you have to kind of go down with this slice and this slice, the first and fourth, and then you go up with the second and the third and sixth slices, and then you turn your cube and you proceed like that. It's pretty easy to make a mistake when you do that, because you have to kind of do that operation 6 times in a row. And but if you do it, it's kind of cool, because you get some diagonal lines that are spaced 3 squares apart on 4 sides of the cube, similar to this type of arrangement here, diagonal lines. And those look pretty neat on top of a woven pattern. And there are certainly lots of other types of patterns on a cube that you can do that involve opposite colors, and I'm pretty sure all of them are going to work well as combinations on top of custom woven patterns. Okay, so now let's do something on the V cube 7, and V cube 7 of course has much more space. So I do all my most complicated patterns on V cube 7. This is what I'm going to make, and I planned it out here. These are my 4 steps: do the vertical and do these 2 horizontals. Step 3, I'm going to do both of these little squares here, and then I'll finish up with that one. And so let's use red, yellow, blue, and I'll put the blue color onto the yellow and then continue on to red. So here's step 1. Got that vertical strip, and we'll go over here. Step 2, and then like that, look at the top, see which slices to turn, and here's my intersecting slice here, so I turn that, And then I've done that. Making sure to remember to return to the same starting colors after each step. So step 2 is going to be these 2 slices. Turn it like this. Intersecting parts for this step are those 3 slices. And then look on the top edge. Here are the 2 to turn. And then look on the top edge. Here are my slices to turn like that. And then for my step 3, it's this dot and this dot. That's where I'm trying to put my new squares. So I turn those 2 slices. Go like this. The intersecting slice, in this case, is here. Look on my top edge. These are the 2 to turn. Look on my top edge. There's the 1 to turn. Continue around to here. That's the dot I'm going to paint last. So I turn that, intersecting here, and then that one, and then that one. Now, last thing I want to show is that when you create when you put the checkerboard pattern on top of another pattern, sometimes you'll get something nice like this, and sometimes this is a 7. This is V cube 7. It's a 7. It's an odd number cube, so we ought to be able to make a nice checkerboard pattern in all 6 faces. Let's see what happens when we do that. Here I am putting the checkerboard on top of my pattern. Now you'll see that there is no longer any recognizable letter R on any of these sides of the cube. Whereas on here, when I had the V cube 5 with my kind of like a lowercase letter R, the lowercase letter R pattern remained even after I put the checkerboard. Now it turns out what's happening in this particular pattern and for the checkerboard, what's happening is that every time you do this step, you take half of the cube, the odd number slices are staying put, and the even number slices move around to the back, and when they move around to the back, they also turn around so they're facing the other way. So what's actually happening when I'm doing this pattern is that I'm making a mirror image, but only along certain rows. So here was my original, I'm trying to turn them all at once with one hand, kind of hard to do. Here's my original shape, and then after I did just the first part of my checkerboard, the shape now looks like it's facing the other way. And it's still facing the same way on the top because I haven't done anything to the top. When I turn the top, it looks like it's facing the same way, but what actually happened is I took these 2 and flipped them upside down. And it turns out these 2 don't change if you flip them upside down. But when I do the third step, which is this, it flips left to right. So what's happening is the odd numbered squares of the checkerboard, the white squares on the chessboard, are getting mirror imaged. And in the particular case of this letter R pattern, that doesn't work. The way the R overlapped the checkerboard ends up creating this chaos. So we'll put it back and just prove that the R is really still there, hidden underneath the checkerboard, and I didn't just, scramble the cube by mistake. There it is. So that's something that you're going to look out for if you're doing a lot of these patterns. The H, of course, it works because the H is the same no matter how you flip it. Vertical or horizontal mirror image, and of course this circle is even more symmetrical than the H. On the circle you can even rotate it 90 degrees and it stays the same. This shape, it just happened that I didn't notice it because it wasn't really a big change that was happening. So that's about it for my pattern drawing. If you happen to know how to solve centers without moving edges and corners, then you can do all sorts of really fancy things with patterns. You can put all 5 colors on any face as long as you obey the restrictions that there's only a certain number of each color available. You can go on to paint other patterns on the second face, and you can get pretty fancy looking cubes. But that's really for people who know how to do commutator algorithms, and I'm going to try to do a tutorial on that at some point soon. Most folks seem to match up their centers before they solve anything else, so they don't even know how to move center pieces around without changing the rest of the cube. We might cover that later. Hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you in a future tutorial.